And then we go over here.
You're live. Hello.
There
It's
it is.
Hi.
Heather and Caitlin.
Hi.
Woohoo! We are here with Saga Erickson,
Hi.
and we are super excited to have her on this podcast. And we're going to talk about some little different things that we have been talking about.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be fun. So, as you know, we are all doing the readings that we do before the start of the podcast, and Saga is going to join us, and she's going to do a room poll that she did earlier, and she's going to share her take on the card reading except through runes.
Yeah. I'm
So
excited.
we're going to go ahead and go get the cards shuffling, and then while we're shuffling, Saga, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Oh man, where to start? I call myself a heathen hedge witch. And how I define that is I'm a Norse animist who considers everything around me divine. And so I have a propensity for communicating with the forest, with the runes, with the dead. As a heathen hedge witch, I am also called a vulva. And a vulva is kind of like a Nordic shaman. And there are a vulva and vitki, which are kind of like the shamanic class of the Nordic experience. Where a Githya is also one of my titles, is ordained ministry, but we call it a Githya instead of a priestess. So anyhow, I have been walking my path since 1989. So I've been walking the path for probably a little over 35 years at this point. And it was in 1992 and into 93 where I went from being kind of eclectic to Celtic Wiccan to being a Norse practitioner, a heathen, and then expanding upon that when I came upon the runes into a deeper and deeper spirituality within the Nordic framework. I'm an artist, and in around that time frame, my spiritual path has always been passionate enough for me that I have to illustrate it. So my work for the last 35 years has been my way of keeping the lore alive.
That's
Um,
awesome.
this folklore, as humans, we are the animals that tell stories. Stories are an integral part of the human psyche from the very beginnings of our walking upright. We have told stories. And so that's what I do in my work as an artist. Another thing I do is 18 years ago, my husband and I decided to walk away from mainstream society to live a sustainability experiment. So we moved to this little shack of a house about 15 minutes from Lake Superior where we could live a sustainability experiment. We do not have running water. We do not have a furnace. And we are in the Lake Superior snow belt. So we have no fossil fuels coming into our home at all. However, we do have electricity and the internet because we have not gotten enough research done to make our own electricity yet, which we're planning on doing a combination of wind and solar, as well as passive solar, as well as like photovoltaic, to kind of fill in the gaps. But where we live, complete sustainability is a little bit difficult. So remaining plugged into the electrical grid, at least we can sell back electricity to the power company and use it when we can't produce our own. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, especially since the electric company that we particularly have is a co-op.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
Ooh.
having an electrical co-op, it's very much a community kind of thing. So, and I actually do have a TED talk out there on how we live.
Well, that's
Um,
awesome. Well, you can
it's
send us over that link. You can send us the link, and then
yeah,
we'll put it up on the
sure.
story notes
Oh,
so
absolutely.
that we can do it.
Yes, it was like a year and a half ago that that I did the TED Talk for one of our local community colleges. So yeah, I'll get the link and I can
Okay,
share that with you
Yeah.
because
awesome.
it kind of explains how and why we decided to live the way we do. Because my husband Dan and I are very environmentally conscious, and both of our spiritual paths, we embrace a lot of very ethical practices. Like me, I'm an, being a Norse animist, I consider everything alive. So we made a decision several years back to go vegan because it's like ethically I could not eat my fellow travelers anymore.
Yep.
And it ended up being one of those fun little things that was the best thing for managing my health. So
That's awesome. Well, we'll
the
talk about that a little
dietary,
more
yeah,
we'll talk about that a little
um,
more. We're
yeah,
going to go ahead and do the card pull, and then we'll continue
sounds good.
on this discussion, Sega, because I know there's a lot of things that you would love to talk about. So I want to get us
Yeah, there's
all in
tons.
there and
Okay,
get everything going so we can get
Yeah.
moving.
I'm
So go
and
ahead,
I
Caitlin.
have
well,
my
I'm actually feeling you go first.
Okay. Wait, hon.
and I have my bag of
Yeah.
staves
Ooh,
here.
Actually,
In
yeah.
let's let Sega go first with the
Yeah, I
runes
got
because
goosebumps with
are you
that
sure?
one.
all right, let's do that.
Because in here I have a mix of both Nordic runes and Druidic Ogham.
Ooh.
I'm a reckless kind of person, and I mix my seeds.
That's
So
awesome.
for our audio listeners, her bag is that linen? That looks like linen to
I
me.
don't
Or
know. I
cotton?
think it's it is some kind of cotton. I actually traded for this because I barter a
Oh,
lot with other artists. So there was an artist in Florida. I've got the tree on one side,
it's a gorgeous tree.
and the Norns are embroidered on the other side. You see,
Nice.
yeah. So yeah, this was made by a fellow Nordic heathen in Florida, and
That's awesome.
I traded her some of my artwork for her artwork, which is
That's
I
awesome.
love
One of
to
my
be
favorite
able
things to do.
to trade with other artists.
So for people who don't know the runes, while we're doing this segue real quick, just do a real quick description of the runes so people
Yes.
know because
Okay.
there's some people out there that don't know what runes are.
Okay. Well, I have I have tools.
Awesome.
Okay. The sigils all the way around this wheel. There we go. Oop. There we go. These are the runes. And rune means mystery. And the way that these runes are described is as a Nordic sigil for an alphabet. Now, these are just letters, but every single one of these letters actually stands for a spiritual concept. So there is poetry and there is folklore to each and every one of these letter sigils. Now, they each have a spiritual value as well as numeric values. And as a means of comparison, the tarot cards, the 22 major arcana of the tarot are based on the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which also each one of those Hebraic letters stands for a whole spiritual concept that have beautiful, beautiful, beautiful poetry to them. The runes are very much the same. Each one of these runic letters stands for a spiritual concept. It's one of the things that I'm teaching in an ongoing workshop, that my runes I also use as a healing system and so on. But we'll get to that further on because I
Mhm.
get really
Yeah.
excited about
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
excited
We
about
love
runes.
it.
Yeah. I love it.
So
So
beauty.
we're go ahead with your rune pull today
Oh,
since
okay.
Grit's calling us to do the rune pull. Have you start today?
Okay. I close my eyes and dig in my bag. Now, I do have a whole actual formal ritual for pulling runes from my bag, but I think I sent you my Norns, right?
Yep.
Did I send you
Yeah,
the
I think
Norns
you
right?
did.
Okay.
I think if
So
not,
yeah,
I'll
I have
if not, go ahead and resend it because I don't remember if you did or not.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll just send all my shit in an email. I'll just send it all. Because I guess I have two
Okay.
because one fell out with me. Holy wow. My very first sigil is, let's see. There we go.
So for
This,
our audio listeners, it looks like a diamond.
yes, it looks like a diamond. And it is the rune Ingwaz, which means gestation. It means ideas or seeds have been planted and now they are beginning to they're beginning the transformation or manifestation that happens in a gestation, like whether it's a pregnancy, whether it's an idea, or whether it's a garden. So Ingwas for gestation. And another rune fell out with it. This is from my very first
Ooh,
set. This is the rune
Hagalaz.
Hagalaz. And
So,
Hagalaz is, pardon?
sorry. For our audio listeners, for me, it looks like a slanted H.
Yeah, it is.
As
Yeah.
someone who
Yes,
doesn't know
and it
runes.
is. Yeah, the English equivalent for this would be the letter H, and this is the rune Hagalaz, which means hail seed. And hail seeds are often symbolic of very deliberate change, very almost like unpredictable change. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, it makes
but
sense
I
to me.
often,
It makes sense to me, but her, she doesn't know runes, but I know right
yeah,
very well what Hagalaz means.
Well, for me, it kinda,
Hagalaz is a hailstorm.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Hagalaz is also associated with the goddess of the dead, Hel. Um, so for me, this particular rune means more than just a hailstorm. It's also the calm after the storm. It is that hail seed melting
Mm.
into potential.
Yeah, there you go. So shake
So,
up,
and
deliberate change and openings.
I
yes,
think
deliberate
that's funny
change and
because
opening.
that
So
goes.
those are the two staves that happen to come up for me. And I have a whole story about these, which we can get to later because it's
Okay.
an obsession and art
Well,
fantasticness and like gooey deliciousness. So
I
there
think
we
it's
go.
so funny that you pulled those because my two oracle cards that came up was a new romantic cycle begins. Now then, it doesn't have to mean romance in an
Right.
aspect of relationships.
Right.
Sometimes it can mean passion. Sometimes it can mean, wow, just a love of something. That's all
Passion.
romance is.
Passion.
Right.
Passion.
So
Passion.
when you said gestation, this is a
Yeah.
new moon in Libra, which is all about balance of a new cycle.
Mhm.
And
Nice.
the other one I got
Very
was the
nice.
full moon eclipse. Conclusions are within reach.
Awesome.
So
Very
those
awesome.
are kind of like my two oracle cards. I had a couple tarot cards come up, but I really felt those go with your runes that you
Yeah.
pulled.
Mine do too with what I got coming up.
Definitely. I'd love to
And
see that.
yeah, I'm so excited. And the
Yeah.
next one is the Eight of Cloaks. So for
Oh,
when I look at this, it's almost for today's reading, it could mean different things, but when I look at this for today, it's almost as if you're being forced open to look
Mhm.
at the parts of you that you're afraid to look at, and you're being surrounded in a mirror or a pendant that's very close to your heart that you just need to look at. So I paired that one with conclusions are in within reach because now it's like a hailstorm.
Mhm.
You're being beaten open.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, clearly.
yes.
And then I
Yes.
got the Knight of Cloaks. Gorgeous, gorgeous card.
It is.
And when I look at this, the Knight of Cloaks is finally taking a stand and choosing a different direction.
Mhm.
When one is shrouded, it doesn't have to be a bad thing because shrouding does not only mean evil. It could just
Right.
mean defense. It could mean to be within the shadow for conveying.
Mhm.
And
And it could be getting into a chrysalis to
exactly,
transform into
which
something else.
when you're shrouded in your cloaks, you need to figure out why, which goes
Yeah.
into the Wheel of Fortune. Speaking of the major arcana.
Yes. Yes.
And when I look at the Wheel of Fortune, here, it's actually the zodiac, but it reminds me of the runes that are etched in that you
Yeah.
were showing me on your
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. Yeah.
And I
And,
think that's
they are magic sigils that stand for
yeah.
spiritual concepts.
And I find that a lot of people are kind of cracking at the seams of what they know. And so oftentimes the Wheel of Fortune is kind of seen as an abundance card. For me, I see this as an abundance of knowledge that you already possess that you're scared to tap into.
Mhm.
Ooh, got chills.
Yeah, I would go into
Yeah.
play with the Knight of Cloaks too. If you're
Oh,
shrouded,
yeah.
so hidden mystery
Mystery,
of the
yeah.
runes, hidden mystery.
Yeah, so that's my
Fun.
reading.
So that
That's fun.
segues to mine. The first one I got was focus.
Ooh.
Let's
Beautiful
show the
card.
card for them. Focus. So when this card come up, this is like the first card that actually popped up to me. Focus is like focus on if we're going with this whole thing, we've got focus on the opportunities that are being available to us, that are coming to us. So it's kind of like falling all into place. So
Yeah.
you're being open, you're cracked open, you're being deliberate with your movements. And now it's saying in this reading for me, it's like focus on where you're going now. It's time to streamline that focus and move it forward. Because,
Mhm.
but to do that, you need to have fluidity, which is the outer
Mhm.
core.
That is such a gorgeous card.
It is
So
beautiful.
it's good to be focused and hyper focused, but it's also a warning that not to be too focused, not to be too stuck in a mindset
Kind
or
of micromanaging it.
yes, it's like almost like going with the flow. So
Yeah.
fluid focus. So you're
And I
kind of
have to do this
adapting
very
to
deliberately.
situations. Yep. Adapting to situations that are coming through and being fluid with them and letting them flow. And then the next card, which is always good to me, is like the North, which also to me means
Ooh. Uh-huh.
ancestors. And then this card is about expansion. So
Okay.
expanding on the knowledge, again, if we're tying these together, expanding on the knowledge that you already have that you haven't been tapped into possessed yet, that's sitting there waiting for you to do that. But to do that, you have to focus and be fluid about your focus so that you can expand your mind and be open to new ways of thinking, new perspectives. And then the last
Excellent.
one is let yourself be carried.
Wow.
So
Wow.
when that card comes up as the final card, it's saying that your fluid focus that you're doing is expanding your mind and your thought process. And it's also let yourself be carried by the universe and let the universe take it where you need to be led. So it's kind of like the ending of this
Letting
kind
go.
of fluid of cards.
Of the new romantic cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And for me, all of these readings combined make an awful lot of sense at this particular stage in my life.
mhm,
Because I've been battling some bodily issues in the last year and a half that had been in remission for about 5 years. And now this ugly monster has raised its head again, and I've had to scale back on my work
mhm,
so I can do my work, if that makes
mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I've had to put away some of my more physically demanding work so I can concentrate on the storytelling aspect, the
Mhm,
illustrations, and my spiritual work, my community, and letting my community help me
mhm,
as I brave what's happening. I have a local community that's part of my Facebook group, and my local community, I've been teaching them over the last year and a half while going through this bodily crap sandwich, how to bloat, how to run celebrations, how to go through the wheel of the year. And so we have gone through all of the celebrations, and I let them know during the last when the last celebration was supposed to happen that I bodily can't do both right now. I can't, and it's driving me insane because I have a hard time not running ritual. I have a
Yeah.
hard time not being the boss and
Well, and
being in
it's
charge.
to me, what
But
I'm being shared with you is that you need to go with that flow and let people help you. Like again, we're
and
talking
yes,
about that.
yeah,
You need to like work on that is where you're becoming in this state of mind, you're becoming an elder status.
yeah.
So
And I have to let
people
that
are
happen.
coming to you now, you don't need to put yourself out there so much. So I think
Right.
maybe the gods and goddesses coming through to you and saying, "Hey,
Yeah,
step
I
back.
think so.
You're doing too much. Let
Yes.
let let other people shoulder the
Yeah.
shoulder the
Es- Especially with the conclusions
burden."
within reach.
Mhm.
Like you're at
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
where we've had our own eclipse recently, the full moon, but this one's a full moon eclipse.
Yeah.
And that tends to kind of shine through in the night in your
Hmm.
darkness,
Mhm.
which I think
And
is great that those two decks paired together
it's
that
very
way.
telling because it's like as I retreat, I have to go back into my hermitage of sorts,
Mhm.
which is my comfort zone and my healing place. But in the meantime, my people have put together the next celebration.
Exactly.
And it's so beautiful to see the seeds that I planted blooming. And I have to let them bloom. And I have to let myself, dissipate and be. Yeah. So
Yeah.
When
yeah,
hail melts into water, all it does is water the plants that you have planted.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm
See, we always find it amusing when we do these. We always find it funny that when we do these readings, it really pertains to our guest in some way, shape, or form. So we're
Yeah.
like doing a reading for you as well as the
it's
collective.
it felt that way. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you because
And then
it's
the runes you pulled kind of like,
It started it.
yeah, it started
yeah,
that process.
it's oddly specific.
But there's people, maybe it's not in your particular situation, but there's people who needed to hear that, who's
Mhm.
in their own kind of
Yeah,
shadow trying to
it's like getting
pinch it
in our
together.
own way is rough. It holds us back when we get in our own way.
So I want to tap into what we were talking about because I know you're working on a couple different projects. But
Mhm.
I want to tap into because we're talking about healing right now. I want to
Oh,
tap into
yeah.
your healing, what you're doing, what are you doing to empower your healing?
To transmute that energy that's dogging people down into a creative and transformative outlet.
Yeah. So let's go ahead
Got
and
it.
share with that. Yeah.
Awesome. Boy, have I got stuff to tell you. Okay. Now, I am a Reiki master, but these days in pagandom, all you have to do is swing a cat and there'll be a dozen Reiki masters all around you.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. I agree.
Um, and at a time when I became a Reiki master, it was just becoming a popular thing. And this was early 90s. Now, since then, I no longer consider myself a Reiki master. For one, there are legitimate Reiki masters out there trying to make a living at this. They've got their shingle hung out, and it's like I I'm a big believer in not stepping on other people's toes whenever possible. Sometimes it's accidental. So my own healing practice has evolved from Reiki terminology and Reiki philosophical concepts, but now they taste very Nordic, very earthy, and there are runes involved in this. There are the Ogham, or actually any oracle system that you want to use. So,
Mhm.
In a Nordic construct, instead of chakras, we have wheels, and it's spelled HWEOL, wheel,
Mhm.
even though it's pronounced
Mhm.
wheel, wheels.
Mhm.
It's kind of an Anglo-Saxon kenning of wheel.
Mhm.
So it's basically a chakra wheel, but
Mhm.
in a Nordic construct, there are usually five, at a lot of the same energy centers as the chakras. Um, this is not originally my concept. The wheels is, like I say, is an Anglo-Saxon concept, and it was, I don't know if popularized is the right term, but became more of a common word amongst Nordic healers from a book by Runic John, and someone that I believe my friend Kurt studied with once upon a time. Anyhow, wheels are basically chakras, and in Runic John's book, there are five. In my world, there are nine.
Mhm.
Usually if I'm doing a healing, I just have the five main ones. And um uh I, can I can I illustrate this as I go?
Yeah, go
Go
for it.
right
Go
ahead.
right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Audio listeners, you
Uh,
hear that? You have to pop up now.
Yeah.
Here we go. It's
Yeah.
we're in for a wild ride. I have to illustrate so much of my world because sometimes my words are pictures. So my journals are kind of a rich mosaic of what I do. So I'm going to find a blank page here, blankish page. There we go.
I felt that
Found a
one.
blank page. Okay, now, here we go. In my healing system, I a lot of times will draw a symbol of. I'm trying to think of the right framework to explain this in. I often see the human spine as a tree,
Mhm.
and our spine and this spinal column, this wonderful thing that makes us bipedal. Um, there starts to be out 33 vertebrae. After
Mhm.
fusion, we have 24.
Mhm.
We have 24 runes in the elder food there.
Interesting.
So anyhow, I see my spine, your spine, anybody I'm working with. I see our spine very much like the central. Here we go. Is that upside down? No, it's not. I see our spine like the inside of a tree.
That's wow. That's
like
great.
like the trunk.
Yeah.
Yes, we are the
Yeah.
trunk, and our spine is that tree that bends without breaking. We are flexible. We move with the wind. We move with the tides, and within this spine of our being are energy centers called chakras, or in my case, wheels. At the very base of my the root of my being, where like my pelvic floor is, I call that the root of my being. In classic terminology, it would be the root chakra. The belly area, our gut feelings. This is the core of my being. Here's the heart of my being. Now, in the core of my being, um, I'm going to start from the beginning again. At the pelvic floor, the root of my being, this is what grounds us. These are our roots that expand into the earth. The core of our being, those gut feelings, are not necessarily emotions, but our instincts, our strengths,
Mhm.
our, you know, vitality, core of our being. The heart of our being, our emotions, our psyche, the things that we feel, not sensation feeling, but those deep emotions are at the heart of our being. The voice of our being is the fourth wheel, where this is what for me represents our tactile senses, our senses of hearing, our senses of sight, speech, taste. This is the century. And then here, the mind of my being processes all of the shitness that happens up and down the tree that dwells within.
Mhm.
So now here's where the illustration part comes in. Sorry about that. Dropped a rune.
What rune was it?
It
What
was
rune
the
was
one
it?
that I pulled earlier because I
Manifestation.
just had them here on my drawing table, but I'm going to put it away for a minute so I don't lose them. Anyhow, there is a rune that symbolizes that tree within. It is the rune Iwaz.
Mhm.
And I believe it is the 13th rune. It's hard to do this backwards. There we go.
Yep.
There we go, right there.
Yep, right there. Yep.
All right.
And,
So for our audio listeners, as someone who doesn't do runes, it looks like a slanted Z.
Yes, it looks like a slanted Z. It's an upright that has a tail this way and a tail this way. And yeah, it looks like an upright Z. And it is the rune for the yew tree, which was like one of the symbols for the tree of life within Norse mythology and so many other mythologies. There's this tree of life. And in
Yggdrasil, right? In North.
Yggdrasil, yep.
Okay.
Yggdrasil. Yeah, Yggdrasil is like the center of the universe. It's the Gununga gap where everything comes from this. It's like the universal center. So anyhow, symbolically, we are also this universe, and this tree dwells within us. And so I will symbolize this if I'm doing a healing with the Iwaz rune and like the 5 main wheels for root, core, heart, voice, and mind to go up and down this symbol of our tree within. So I will draw that. I'm going to draw it regular and then show it to you because I'm having a hard time right now.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to symbolize it by drawing the 5 wheels.
So she's drawing 5 wheels for our audio listeners.
Yep, I'm drawing 5 wheels.
5 wheels.
The root.
The rune Iwaz, or the tree within, runs through. So can you guys here we go.
So the for audio listeners, it is that that upright Z, and then she's got the wheels going down.
5 little circles.
5 little circles going down.
Okay, so that is the core for my healing system, and I call it dancing the wheels. I shared a wheel clearing ritual with Heather a while back, and I'm happy to share my file on that because it's kind of a cool system and like a precursor to the whole healing system. What I do is with each one of those wheels, if I'm clearing the wheels, I will physically move my body. You know, I'm usually in a seated position because I do my spiritual practice every morning. And as I'm seated in my own little corner, in my own little chair, being whatever I want to be, I will imagine like the root of my being, and I will move my pelvic floor as I'm seated in one direction and then in the other direction, and then even move my pelvic floor in a figure 8 to music of my choice to clear that particular wheel. And I'll do that through every one of the wheels where I will physically move my body in those wheels, whether it's my stomach or whether it's my heart or whether it's my, my voice, my head. I will physically move these until my entire body is a snaking, moving DNA
So like a
spiral.
moving meditation in a
It
way.
is a moving.
Yeah.
So you're
rather
moving.
kinetic because that's how I am. I don't know if it's a spectrum thing, but I need my practice to be very kinetic. So I will go through my entire body clearing these wheels and then, dance myself back down again within this practice as a way to, for me, connect to my body, mind, spirit, and help me to find what this body needs. Or if I'm doing a healing for somebody else, find out what their body needs. Now, I've done the clearing. I will do the same thing if I'm doing a distance healing for somebody. There in my mind's eye, I become the tree with them. Whoever I'm healing, I become the tree with them. And almost like, here they are. Here's my person I'm trying to heal, and I embrace them as the tree.
Yeah.
I become the tree. I'm holding them up, and I go through the clearing of the wheels, and then I will pull runes to see what each area of their body needs. So that's kind of a core telling of the system that I'm developing, that I've been working with on myself to keep me mobile. Because what I've been dealing with both my MS flare and some of the spinal shit that's happening is a lot of these things I'm developing are actually keeping me mobile and keeping me functional and from being in a wheelchair. It helps me be engaged with the world. And I'm really hoping that as I share this with other people and they make it their own, any oracles can be used. Any system can be used. It's like it's a plug and play of a way to connect with your own body, mind, and spirit to be your own best tool. And if I can share that tool with other people so they can work on their own healing, fantastic.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. I love that idea. I love the idea of movement because there's a lot of people that don't like to sit still.
yeah,
They
and
want to
I'm one of those
move.
people that has a hard time sitting still.
So
And
having that
there's a lot of
option.
us, it's kind of a stimming thing. If
Yeah.
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 So I just
Um,
remembered I have an illustration of all
okay.
9 wheels.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So it's like,
Oh yeah, right there.
yeah.
Actually, this kind of is a great segue into how
Yeah.
does art help you in the, because as you were saying before, you're kind of off the grid besides the internet grid, right?
I am. Yeah.
So how does art and this healing make you feel connected while being disconnected from the rest of our
Yeah.
livelihoods?
That's for me, that's kind of an easy question. Um, I process differently. And for me, art has always been my escape. It's a disassociation that, for my part, has become one of my best healing tools. It's stories and that fantastic imagination that is part of the human dynamic is our out from when life gets too tough, for when the pain gets too big, emotionally or physically. And as a kid, art was what I had to heal. Art was where I went to heal.
I
Art
get it.
and the stories were my
Yeah.
sanctuary, that I was the only one that had the rules. So it was safe. Now, as an adult, it has always been the same. It is where I go when the world gets too big. And even though I guess I'm called what would be called an ambivert. I am extremely expressive and I love to connect with my fellow humans. And then I need hermitage, where I totally retreat from all humanity.
An
I get
an
And that all lives
extroverted
in one person.
extroverted introvert. That's kind of
Yeah,
like how I
that's
am. Yeah.
I think
yeah.
that's all
And
it
it's
was.
like, like this kind of format, I I shine as a storyteller in this medium.
hmm
You get me in a crowd and I'm the cat cowering in the corner.
Yeah.
So and for me, the art, like, another example, I hide in my art. And when I was raising children, I had to make a living.
Yeah.
Now, I can't get a degree because I'm terribly, terribly dyslexic. So I can't get a degree doing what I do because I can't get through math. I can read. In fact, I can read inside out, sideways, backwards, upside down, you name it. When I could finally learn how to read, now I can read everything. Makes
For
reading,
me, I can't even multiply my times tables. I
yeah.
have
See, and it's
such
like,
bad dyscalculia.
yes, just calculate. I didn't have a name for any of it until I went to tech school. Um, I wanted to be an engineer. I figured at least put the drawing talent to some good. In tech schools, when I found out just how bad dyslexic I was, because it's in high school, I understood algebra. I understood all of this stuff. You think I could write it down in the right order and then track it? Hell no. So in tech school, I ended up having a very sympathetic professor who was tutoring me every day. And we got through the first semester and he went, "You're dyslexic. You're not going to get through this program." And I had in my technical drawing class, this was before CAD was a thing, where we had to draw out all of the mechanical drawings longhand. My drawings were perfect, but they were inside out and backwards. That's not
I
that's not a good thing if you're doing designing
My
tools.
son used art. My son used art because he was horrible at math. And then
Yeah.
when he got to the point where he learned geometry, it was a whole different
Geometry's
ballpark for him.
different.
Yeah,
geometry's
Geometry's
different.
different. I
geometry
got
just like
geometry.
once he started doing geometry,
Oh yeah.
it was like he was able to create stuff and he was able to
Mhm.
understand math concepts. And I want to say
Yeah.
that something, the segue, like for me, I had trouble with math as well. But what helped me just recently was when we were talking about music as a mathematical
Yeah.
and how there were symbols
It
used
is.
in music
Yeah.
as mathematics. And so it's like, okay, that's kind of clicking with me now, type,
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, hexagons are the bestagons. But for me, I don't even know my times tables. I can't do it mentally. And if there's no calculator to double check myself, don't even ask me to write it out.
Mhm.
But I can know that the circumference of a circle is equal to pi times the diameter. Input
I
numbers.
think people that do
Yeah.
art, I think that's their key. People do, because my
It is.
son's an excellent artist too.
Yeah.
And I think the people that do art understand that mathematical
Yeah.
formula in certain
It's
ways.
instinctive. There's something about those formulas that is instinctive. And as soon as you put numbers to it, it's like,
Yeah.
what?
I mean, I know how to find tangent, but don't ask me when you put numbers in it. And if it's a decimal, I'm out.
So we're going to segue now because we're
Ooh,
getting
yes.
around about 15. So like, we're getting towards the end of the
Wow.
podcast. But I wanted
Wow.
to talk about what we were discussing about. You were saying about a TED talk that you're
Yeah.
doing and
Oh,
how
yes.
about your life and what you chose. So let's talk about that a little bit. So people,
Sure.
if people are venturing with that idea, they kind of like get some
Yeah.
experience with that.
Well, my husband and I got together just over 18 years ago, and we've actually lived here in our wee hobble house for just over 17 years now, which is where we started our sustainability experiment. And what we wanted to cut out the middleman in our daily life. And my children were grown and gone and off to college. So there was really nothing that was holding us back from living just the way we want to live. And we're not fancy people. We don't need the bells and whistles, and we rather despise how our society has been trained that we need all the next new things.
Mhm.
So we attended an energy fair in the center of Wisconsin that was called the Energy Fair.
Straight and to the point.
I mentioned it in the TED Talk. But because we wanted to live a sustainable life and had no idea what that even meant, except that we wanted to reduce our human footprint and we wanted to reduce how much we were paying for a lifestyle. So we went to this energy fair and we were absolutely inspired by all of the things people are doing, everything from solar energy to wind power to composting toilets to hemp bricks to you name it. So we went an hour north of where I had my art studio, um, to start a new life, and a life that didn't involve the middleman of fossil fuels, that didn't involve having to be completely plugged in. Now, like I say, we do still have electricity and we have internet. We have internet because that's the only way we have phone service. Otherwise, we can't get communication here at all. We live about 4 miles south of the nearest town, and the nearest town is a combination of what we call the Twin Cities in the north, up by Lake Superior. And the total population of these two villages is only 7,000 people. And I was telling Heather earlier that the closest thing to a city we have up here is Duluth, which is 2.5 hours drive northwest of us
Wow.
here on the western edge of the UP and northern Wisconsin. So anyhow, we decided to live a sustainable life up here, and just the right property showed up to do this in. So we have an acre oasis in the middle of swamps and forests and granite outcroppings in the beautiful Northwoods of northern Wisconsin. Our little plot, there's an acre here that is technically enough to grow all the food we could possibly need. My physical health makes it difficult to actually grow the food we need. But we're doing as much else that we can. So we haul our own water. Because of where we live, it's difficult to get a well drilled without hundreds of thousands of dollars of not hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands in expense to drill a well through solid granite.
Mhm.
Because our wee hovel house sits on a mix of granite and heavy clay loam. So
Ooh.
yeah, it'd be at least 10 grand to have a
Mhm.
well drilled here. So we haven't had running water for the whole 17 years. Um, we haul water. We are doing experiments and collecting the supplies to do rainwater catchment. But fortunately, or unfortunately, other people can't drill wells up here either. So there
Mhm.
is a town well a mile down the road where we can get fresh water. By the local community college in town 4 miles, there's another community well. And right by Lake Superior, there are a couple of natural springs that we visit. So we've gotten really good at water conservation. And the average American household goes through 90 gallons of water per day per person. We go through about 8 gallons total
Wow.
Oh, wow.
per household. But there's just two of us, and you you become really, really good at conserving water. Our wee hovel house has never had a furnace or ductwork. And again, we live in the Lake Superior snow belt.
Mhm.
So winters up here are pretty severe, but we get our firewood, and that's what we use. We heat with wood. And because we have forests and forests and more forests up here, we can get a firewood permit to gather our own firewood for $20 a year.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And we can go to the county forest, and as long as it's dead and down, we can gather up to 10 cords of firewood a year for $20.
Wow.
Our house is only 400 square feet, so it only takes 2 to 3 cords of firewood a winter to heat this little house.
Mm.
So instead of paying to have heat come to our house through propane or natural gas, $20 in our own labor is what goes into heating our house. And quite personally, I'd rather be in the middle of the woods gathering firewood than shelling out hundreds of dollars to keep my ass warm, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
One of my favorite things that I've come across that this kind of reminded me of is to start being a creator and not a consumer. Because as you were
yeah,
saying, we have
yes.
become into a society where we are kind of brainwashed that we need to consume instead of create.
Yeah, I'd rather create than consume. Now, granted, we all do our fair share of consumption, but
Yeah.
the meme that I've seen going around is that we don't have to monetize everything we create. That's,
Mhm.
that's one of the greatest disservices our country in particular does to the creative community. It's like, how much is it worth? How much can I sell it for? It's
Mhm.
like sometimes we gotta just create from the heart. And I'm semi-retired at this point, so I have the privilege of being able to create now without worrying about, is it going to pay the rent? I've been there long enough in my life, but everybody everybody should have the privilege to be able to create without feeling guilty for taking the time to create
Mhm.
or monetizing it.
That's what.
And we need a yeah, we need a lot
Well,
more
I was
people
just kind
going.
of giggling about that because we were just discussing this yesterday
We were.
about the money mindsets and how
I remember what I
we
said.
wanted to go back to do our mission of the podcast. And if it monetizes, it monetizes. Our
Right,
mission, like I
right.
said, is to, I will just go through it, to hold a safe space for individuals to find empowerment, transformation, and creation, to
Yeah,
build a sustainable community of resources, and to inspire and love others to empower, transform, and create through conversations and community. So that's our podcast in a nutshell.
Yeah.
nice.
Why we bring
Very
all these
nice.
different people in, and
Yeah,
all these different uh walks of life. I mean, you're self-sustaining.
Yeah.
Like, you're one of the first that we've talked to about the self-sustaining,
Oh,
which,
absolutely.
I mean, the other ones are talked about other good topics and things, but you were talking about the sustainability. And I think that is really an important topic in this day and age, because there's
Absolutely.
so much consumerism
Oh my goodness. It's almost as
versus,
if the one thing that makes me mad that we have adopted as a society is the subscription system.
yeah,
You can't even own anything anymore.
yeah.
yeah. And see, we just took out our very first car loan in 10 years this past year. We don't have any debts. We live below poverty level. We
Mhm.
don't have debts. And
It's
yeah, it's like
But
our
you're showing
income
that
is
you're
less than
happy.
20
You're
grand a year.
happy
yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And it's like, we're not lacking. We're not starving. Do we have the latest iPhone? No. We have track phones.
Yeah.
They work.
Mhm.
We don't need tons of stuff. We There's never been a video game other than whatever is on my phone in this house. We Because we do have electricity, um, and we have internet. We actually became part of more of pop culture during the pandemic, and we
Mhm.
got a Disney subscription and
Mhm.
became addicted to Star Wars.
We all have our vices.
So we're pretty dangerous here as far as consumerists.
Oh, may the fourth
But
be with you
Yeah.
when it comes around.
yes, and May the 4th, I am so my people, my children from my collective, they sent out invitations the other day. They've completely planned the Beltane celebration.
Oh,
And
that's
I
awesome.
am so proud of my peoples because it's like they're so excited, and I feel like the mommy that's coming to the surprise birthday party.
Well, what can I say? It's Revenge of the Fifth.
Yes. I love that. I love that.
So, as we're closing out the podcast, what words of wisdom and final thoughts do you have to share with our listeners and viewers
Yeah.
to help with their lives and
And how
making
to
it better?
sustain and be happy with what they got in a world where there is no such thing as having anything.
Yes.
In a world that's so materialistic and so disposable, look at your most cherished thing. Could you live without it? Could you live without your most cherished possession? And when you can, you know you've transcended that material grab. And while you're there, look at your path and trust it. Every path is different. There is so much to learn from our peers out there. Trust your path. Watch your peers. Enjoy their path as an observer. And know that their path is theirs. Your path is yours. And these paths are vital to our own growth. We all evolve at a different rate. We've always been here. And that's kind of a beautiful thing to know that there's a perpetual nature to our consciousness and so much more to learn. Every breath, every day is exciting. Yeah, looking at every breath as an exciting opportunity, that hail seed that's melting into
Mhm.
gestation, into hope,
Mhm.
into hope.
I
So
have one
Awesome.
more card of the podcast that I was drawn to draw. And in
Yeah.
this full moon energy, I drew the full moon, which is
yeah,
surrender to the divine, just as you were talking about your own path and living without
Mhm.
and knowing that you are taken care of.
yeah,
I
that's
thought that
pretty
was just
cool. That's
perfect
pretty
word to end
cool.
on.
Yeah, I'm just thrilled with that because the conversation we had yesterday, and now we have the clarity after we're moving on a Mercury retrograde. Now we're having
Yeah.
that clarity now, and it's kind of put us back on that purpose
hmm
and the gestation of the idea.
Oh, absolutely. And it's money in itself is just a resource. So why are we
Yeah,
It is. It
obsessed
is.
with
Yeah, we've put so much value into this thing when it's this that's valuable. It's the
exactly.
interconnection. It is the interconnection between humanity and our fellow travelers. That's where the richness is. That's where the wealth is.
That's where
You
the
know,
abundance is. Yep.
Yeah.
that's
And the
where
other
the
day I came
yeah.
across such a great saying that I think we could end on. And it's love overpours into every aspect of your life. If you are having trouble with one aspect, what part of you can you love that you've been neglecting?
Yeah. And then love that fiercely. Love it fiercely, and it's going to spread.
So when do you have the TED Talk out now, or is it coming?
I
Let's
do.
okay.
All you
Yay.
have to do is look up my name. So Saga Erickson, sustainability and making a living. That's my
Okay.
TED Talk. And
Okay.
yeah, it's it probably came out about a year ago. We recorded it like a year and a half ago. So yeah,
That's
there it is.
awesome. And then everyone keep an eye out for her book that she's collaborating. Any other projects you want to close off with,
Yeah.
so people can keep an eye out?
There will be a Norse creation story coming out. I'm hoping around Yule because I'm just finishing it at this point. And I'm also working on the wheels lessons and procedures and everything are in a book I'm working on that I'm calling Riding the World Tree. And it is going to be a series of exercises, poetry, and impressions on how to practice. So it's kind of going to be a workbook for people as well as, some philosophical blurbs and such. And of course, lots of
Okay.
illustrations because I can't do anything without illustrating it.
Yeah.
Picture books were always my favorite. It's fun.
Picture books. I gotta have picture books.
Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and end the,
Yeah.
the,
Awesome.
the podcast. It was wonderful speaking with you.
Thank
Mwah.
you. Thank you.
And I hope
Mwah.
everyone gets a lesson in this podcast
Yeah.
episode.
And we hope that this episode inspired you to empower, transform, and create in your own lives.
Yep.
Me too. Thank
Catch you
you.
guys later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.